My name is Sam. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at Fairygodboss. Fairygodboss is the largest career community for women. Our mission is to improve the workplace by increasing transparency. We offer a ton of great free resources like anonymous company reviews, job listings, articles, virtual recruiting events, and so much more to help you succeed throughout your career. Before we get started, we will be taking questions at the end of today's webinar. Feel free to leave them in the Q&A. You'll find that again at the bottom of your screen, and you can leave questions as yourself or anonymously, so feel free to do either. We will also be recording today's webinar and sending it out in a follow-up email later today. So if you miss anything or you'd like to rewatch it back, you will have the ability to do so. Here with me today is Amy Geffen. Amy is President and Chief Career Coach of Geffen Careers. She brings to her practice over 30 years of experience in such industries as finance, engineering, higher education, risk management, health, nonprofit organizations, and associations. She's transitioned into 4 new careers with increasing levels of responsibility, so she understands the challenges people face when changing jobs and careers. Thanks so much for being here today, Amy. Over to you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for that kind introduction, Samantha. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone from all over the United States and Canada. Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about finding the hidden jobs market. A lot of you are answering ads on the internet, but you need to understand that a lot of the jobs, most of the jobs, are not even listed on the internet. So let's get started and you're going to find out where are those jobs. This is about me. You can see that later. I started out as a teacher. Then I went to work at college administration. Then I went to work in associations, including a risk management association, a mechanical engineering association, and a financial analyst association. And then after that, I lost, the only job I ever lost, I went into career counseling, coaching, and I took the training with the then called Get 5 o'clock club, which is now called Get 5, and I became a career coach. Okay, what are we going to talk about today? What's the hidden job market? How do you do a self-assessment, including your accomplishments? How do you target a job? How can you expand your network, which is part of your job search process? How do you reach out to companies? What are you going to say at the meetings, and how do you follow up after meetings? So what is this hidden job market? Is there such a thing? Everyone knows you can apply for jobs on the internet. There are millions of people applying every day. Now this is a little old, 427,000 people apply on Monster every week. It's probably more than that, and that's just Monster. You know, there are other job aggregators such as Indeed, Idealist, lots of different ways that you can find a job online. But did you know that only 10 to 15, 14% of people actually get a job by answering an ad on the internet? 40% or more of people get a job through networking, and 40% or more people get a job directly contacting someone who is a hiring manager. I don't mean human resources, unless you work in human resources. The hiring manager is the person 1 or 2 levels above the job you're going for, who is in a position to hire someone. And then what's the rest? Yes, 10, 15 or more % of people get jobs through recruiters or search firms. So, according to Forbes, unadvertised jobs are a hidden job market that account for 80% of all the hires. That's a lot of people that get hired, not from ads, answering ads on the internet. So we're going to figure out what it is you can do as a job seeker to go for those jobs. Here's an example of what happens when someone applies online. Of 1,000 people, and there may be more who apply, see a job posting online, maybe 200 start the process, maybe 100 people will complete the process online. So the company receives 100 resumes. 75 of those, at least, will be screened out, either by the recruiter or by an ATS. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. It's artificial intelligence. And what that does is it compares your resume to the job description, and it spits out a report. And if you do not meet all of the skill sets, hard skills, soft skills, education requirements, no one is going to look at your resume. So let's say 25 resumes get to the hiring manager. Maybe they invite 4 to 6. Maybe if you're lucky, 10 people go to the first round of interviews. Then there's a second round of interviews, 4 to 6. And then 1 to 3 people come to the final and 1 person is offered the job, okay? 80% of the people who are offered the job will accept it. Sometimes it's not the job they really want. So what is this hidden job market? The jobs that are not posted online. They're not advertised. A hiring manager, someone in a position to build their staff, knows in advance when they're going to need to fill a position. Maybe they know they're going to be firing someone for poor performance, or maybe they know someone's not happy for whatever reason and is going to leave, or maybe they're adding a new position. They know this 6 months to a year before it actually happens, way before they put an ad on the internet. Therefore, it's your job as a job seeker to meet as many people in your field as possible so they get to know you and they think of you when they know there's going to be a job opening. So why do employers choose other alternatives to putting an ad on the internet? That's the easy way and you get lots of responses. So first of all, it's cheaper than listing jobs. Sometimes it costs a pretty penny to pay. They're more likely to get quality applicants from a current employee. Why? The people who are at a company are already known by the company, they're respected by the company, they understand the company culture. So a person that they recommend for an opening is much more likely to be interviewed and hired than just a stranger who comes in off the street, despite the fact they may both have great qualifications. There's an opportunity for team building through referrals. In many corporate cultures like Facebook or Google, there's a lot of pride in the idea that they have a certain type of worker. And so someone who's already employed by a company understands this culture and can understand who amongst their friends who are looking for a job would make a good fit in that company. Self-assessment. We're going to spend a lot of time on self-assessment because you're going to be using your accomplishments and your skills during this whole process in this job search. First, write down your accomplishments. What do I mean by that? What are you proud of having accomplished either on a job, a previous job, a summer job, a part-time job, an internship, a course that you took, pro bono work you did without pay, or consulting work you did? I ask my clients to come up with 25 accomplishments. You think that's difficult, but if you think really hard through your past history and all the things you've done, you'll come up with at least 15 to 20. Of those, pick 7 that you're most proud of. And ask yourself this question about those accomplishments. What were the circumstances? What was the problem or challenge you faced? Who did you work with? What solutions did you come up with? What actions did you take to solve that problem or meet that challenge? And then what were the results? And what were the skills that you used in that accomplishment? Skills could include anything from planning, writing, coding, organizing, leading a team, developing a marketing strategy. And from these stories, you will develop what are your best skills. And then the other part of a self-assessment is, what are the characteristics of a job environment where you would like to work? Do you prefer working in a corporate environment or a not-for-profit? Do you want to work where there's a strict hierarchy, or do you want to work where there's a more flat structure where people are all members of the same team and there isn't this hierarchy of who reports to whom? All of these are part of the self-assessment that will help you figure out what kind of company and what kind of environment you want to work in. Accomplishments. So you're going to list your accomplishments. And for each job that you've had, you're going to put 3 to 5 accomplishments. Accomplishments are going to appear in 2 places on your resume. At the top of the resume, after your name and the job title you're going for, you're going to list 3 to 5 accomplishments that are relevant for the job you're going for. And then under each of your past jobs in reverse chronological order, you're also going to be writing 2 to 5 accomplishments. Then in the top part of your resume, there's skills. You could call it skills, you could call it competencies. These can include things like team building, writing, financial analysis. The key skills that you've been using. 100% of managers are going to LinkedIn, and they only spend 7 to 10 seconds on your resume. So these keywords and key skills need to appear in your resume and also in your LinkedIn profile, because one of the ways you can be found for a job is by a recruiter or a hiring manager that searches by keywords on the internet. Several of my clients have been found that way. You don't say open to new opportunities or looking for my next job in your profile. What you do is you pack your profile, the heading, the about section, and your chronology of work history, you pack it with keywords. So last summer, a company out in Iowa thought it was going to get a contract to do some career coaching for a company in Quebec, Canada, that was laying people off. And they needed a career coach who speaks French and can read and write in French. And they found me on the internet, on LinkedIn, and they contacted me. So they interviewed me. And they ultimately didn't get that contract, but because they liked what they heard when they interviewed me, and I can do leadership coaching as well as career coaching, they ultimately used me as a consultant on a few projects to do leadership training. So it works. Creating your LinkedIn profile is an extremely important part for you to find the hidden job market. Now, why are we spending all this time on these accomplishments? Because you're going to use them in your pitch, in your direct mail, emails to companies, in your cover letters for jobs, in your resume, 2 places in your resume, during the interview, and in the follow-up. We'll talk a little bit about that too. It's not simply a thank you letter. Yes, you want to thank them for having you in to talk, but it's also an influencing email. It's a way to emphasize the skills you have and how you can help the company solve its problems. So how are we going to write up these accomplishments and then talk about them? This is called the PAR approach. P stands for problem. What was the problem that you had to solve? A stands for action. What action did you take? And R stands for result. What was the result? And you try to talk about results in terms of dollars saved, dollars earned, increase in clients, increase in satisfaction, or you use percentages if you can't use numbers. Here are some examples of accomplishments. Reduce customer complaints by 22% in a 6-month period by conducting 45 service technician training programs throughout an 8-state region. Okay. Obviously, the problem was there were a lot of complaints from customers. The response was, okay, create a training program. But what was the result? In this case, we start with the result because it's pretty amazing, reducing customer complaints by 22%. Second one, exceeded annual sales quotas over a 15% average for each year over 3 years. That's a great result if you're in sales. Now notice they didn't use the dollar amount. Maybe the dollar amount was small. When the dollar amounts are small, sometimes it's better to use a percent. Third one, save $100,000 through benefits redesign while maintaining overall quality and employee satisfaction. Meaning the company was spending too much money on the benefits, maybe it was on the healthcare, which is very expensive. And so they did some research, they looked at other possibilities, and they came up with a design to keep the benefits, but save money for the company. And then the last one, save $3 million by implementing comprehensive cost reduction program and quality improvement. The important thing here is that each one starts with a verb, Each one includes percents, numbers, dollars. It's very specific. You don't have to say you're successful if you tell a story about what you've done and how much money you've increased for the company, the revenue you've increased for the company. When you tell a story about these examples, it will show that you are successful, accomplished, innovative. You think out of the box. You don't need to use those words. Those words will come to mind to the person who's listening to you. All right, here's some examples. Before, successfully managed partnerships. Okay, it tells you what this person did, but this could just simply be a job description. So what's a better way to say it? Managed events with over 25 industry associations and achieved a 60% increase in strategic partnerships. So notice there's no word successful in the after. It starts with the verb, it gives a number, it gives a percent increase. Second, developed and published metrics to increase call center productivity. Okay, but it's not specific. Develop metrics posted daily, and within the first month productivity increased, there's a typo, 33%, and the call length dropped 15%. Or you could start it with increased productivity by 33% through developing of metrics posted daily. So you can start with the action or you can start with the result, either one. Last example, led a team of 10 staff people to design a conference. Okay, that's great, so you design a conference. So what? What was the result of your working on this conference? This is a better way to explain it. Led a team of 10 to design the first India oil and gas conference, resulting in 150 attendees. So here's an example of someone who's doing conferences, which is basically continuing professional education for the members of an organization. So they don't have a dollar amount on it, but they do have the number of attendees. And also they said it was the first one. Okay, your job target. A job target consists of 3 things, and you need to know what this is in order to find the hidden job market. Your job title or function, the industry, and the location. So when you look for jobs or you look for the salary range for a job, you need to know the title, the industry, and the location. What's the primary industry you want to work in? Maybe it's healthcare. Maybe it's finance. Maybe it doesn't really matter to you what industry it is. It's just the job title itself. So the position you're looking for is the job title. And the geographic location could be Vancouver, Canada, San Francisco, New York City, Greater Metropolitan New York, Greater Metropolitan Philadelphia. You need to be sure where you'd like to work. One of my clients was living and working in New York, and he decided he wanted to move himself and his family to one of 2 places, Kansas City or Columbus, Ohio. So I helped him make a list of companies in those cities where he could find work as a patient care advocate. And he was able to write directly to those people at those companies and get interviews. So he went for a trip for about a week. He spent 3 days in each city, and he had interviews, informational interviews, and ultimately he got a job. Create your job target map. You select 2 or 3 industries, you make a list of the companies, the organizations, the for-profits or the not-for-profits where you want to work. And you need to write the possible number of positions. Remember now, you don't know whether there's an opening at these companies. What you want to do is have a list of enough organizations where your job title exists. Give you an example. Okay, let someone work in media and they're a feature editor. And in New York City, there's 10 different companies that have that job title, and there's 4 positions in each company. So that's a total of 40 positions. That does not mean that there are 40 openings at the moment. It just means that those positions exist. Maybe they looked at Media New Jersey, and there are 8 companies that have newspapers. 2 possible positions as feature editor. They looked in Connecticut. So there are different industries, different job titles. Maybe they could be a travel editor. Maybe they could be a news editor. Maybe they could be a culture editor. And so they need to find out what are the companies, how many possible positions, and ultimately they come to 201. So here's a sample that you can use. You're going to be getting a copy of this, and you can use this sample. The object is, once you've got your list, to start writing emails, connecting to the hiring manager, following up with a phone call, trying to get a meeting. So how are you going to use it? This map or Excel spreadsheet is a planning and tracking tool for your job search. It gives you clear direction. It identifies and prioritizes a company and each target. It helps you to see whether the opportunities are open or hidden. How do you know that? Well, you can go to a company website and they often say career opportunities, and you can see whether jobs are listed there. You can go on LinkedIn and see whether jobs are listed there or elsewhere. It also shows you how you're going to get this meeting. Are you going to send an email, make a phone call? Are you going to be recommended to this company or introduced to somebody at the company by someone you already know? And it allows you to share excerpts from this map. So when you go to a meeting with one person at one company and you're asking for career advice, you can say, would you mind taking a look at this list and tell me, have I left something out? Should there be a company that I must add to my list? Or you can ask this person, is there someone that you know that you could introduce me to at any of these companies? So this target map or Excel spreadsheet allows you to track your job search through the networking you do, the people you meet, and the connections that you make. Now, one of the big ways to find the hidden job market is through networking. And you may say, well, gee, I don't really know that many people, or I don't know enough people in my field. So we're going to tell you how you're going to build your network. Who's in your network? Basically everybody you know, your family, your friends, coworkers or former coworkers, former supervisors, your personal accountant, lawyer, hairdresser, trainer, dog walker, nanny, etc. Basically your network right now is everyone you know. Okay, so you start with the people you know and you show them, you talk with them by phone or by Zoom, and you show them your list of companies and you ask them, do you know anybody at these companies? And if you do, can you introduce me? Can you think of other companies who could be on my list? How are you going to expand your network? First thing is, you really need to be part of your professional association. Everybody knows that if you're a doctor, you belong to the AMA. If you're an attorney, you belong to the ABA. If you're a neonatal nurse, there is an organization called NAPNAP, believe it or not, that's the name of it, National Association for Neonatal Nurses. If you are a chartered financial analyst, there is the CFA Institute. If you're an accountant, there's the American Society of CPAs. So you need to find out what's your professional association. You need to join, but more than that, get involved by attending meetings, whether they're by Zoom, by joining a committee or a board of some sort. Why? You want to get to know people who are in your field, who are working at other places. As an association exec, I joined the Society for Association Executives. And in the New York Society, they had lots of meetings, and they also had a special group for women in senior positions that met every 2 months, once for an hour or two every 2 months. We had speakers, and we got to know each other very, very well. So when anyone was in danger of losing a job or left a job, that was a group of 20 to 25 women that I could count on, and who could count on each other for finding out where are the jobs and for introducing us to other people. Alumni Association. Are you still in touch with anyone from your high school, your college, your graduate school? Now, here's the thing about alumni associations. You don't necessarily have to join. You can find and connect with people who went to your school on LinkedIn. I'm going to tell you how to do that. You go to LinkedIn, and in the upper left-hand corner is a little search box, and you search by the name of your school. So my undergraduate school is Brooklyn College, so I look for Brooklyn College School. There may be more than one setting or page for your school. You have to look for your name of your school and the word school. You click on that. And what you're going to find is, on the left side, it will say mission, history, people, alumni. People are the people who are working at the school. Alumni is what you want to click on. Click on the word alumni, and it will pop up, 10,000 alumni, 100,000 alumni. What you want to do then is you can filter these names by saying what city you want to look at, what industry you want to look at, a company that you want to look at. And when you put in the filters, at the bottom of the page, when you scroll down, will be the names of the people who attended your school, who are living in that city and working in that company. And then you can connect to them on LinkedIn and say, hey, we're both alums from the same school. Would you like to connect? First message, you don't ask them for a job, and you don't say you're looking for career advice. Your first message is simply, hey, we're alums from the same school. I'd love to connect. Second message, if they connect with you, gee, I'd love to learn more about what you do and more about your company. Can we set up a phone call? Let's see if they say yes. Alumni are 95% more likely to answer you, even though you don't know them, than a cold call or a cold email to someone. So if they say yes, great. So then you set up the phone call. And then during that phone call, you can say that you've been an alum and this is what you've been doing. And now you are in transition and you'd like their career advice. Again, don't ask for a job. Just ask for their career advice and then see where that goes. And then you can also share your list of companies and see if they know anyone and see if they're willing to introduce you to people. Okay, a club that reflects your personal interests. I happen to like doing pottery. I belong to a pottery studio. I wouldn't call it a club, but I go there every week. I've gotten clients from the studio. There you go. The owner of the studio has referred people to me. So if you like to play tennis or you like to play bridge or you like to join a book club, do that. And there are people in those clubs reflecting your interest. You already have something in common with them. Everyone has their own network of 100 to 200 people. And you never know who knows somebody who might help you. Do volunteer work for a cause you believe in. Now, at this time, most of us are not doing live volunteer work, understandably, with COVID-19. Some people are braving it and they are still going to food pantries and handing out food. There are other kinds of volunteer work. Tutoring, reading stories to elementary school children. I did volunteer work for a company called the Taproot Foundation. The Taproot Foundation is a not-for-profit, and they provide other not-for-profits with leadership and consulting. So when I was out of work, I did 3 different consulting assignments. One to develop a strategic plan, one to help recruit new board members, and there was a third one, and now I can't even remember what that one was about. But the point was the work was directly related to my experience and my work in not-for-profits. And so I was able to add that to my resume. Even if you can't add it to your resume, you meet people, again, who have their own networks. So volunteering at this time, if you have the time, is a great way to meet new people. And last but not least, do you belong to a civic or a religious organization? The Elks, the Masons, things like that. Your local chamber of commerce, or a religious organization, a church, a temple, a mosque. Again, it's another way to meet people. Okay, now, let's say you go to a meeting. You want to follow up and you want to stay in touch. There's no point in going to any kind of meeting, whether it's a social meeting or it's a business network meeting, and just handing out your business card. It's not about the number of cards you hand out. It's about meeting a few people. When I go to these meetings, I say, okay, if I can meet 3 people and have a good conversation with them and follow up, that's okay. because you're not going to meet everybody, and not everybody's going to be interested in meeting you. The object is to meet, have a good conversation, exchange cards, or if you can't have a long conversation, say, I'd love to follow up with you afterwards. And then you can email and set up a Zoom call or a FaceTime or a Skype call. After you've met someone, and it could be on Zoom meetings. Now there are Zoom networking meetings as well. After you've met the person, you've had a conversation, you follow up with an email saying it was great meeting you last night during the Zoom meeting. I'd love to set up a one-to-one. A one-to-one just means a private meeting. And then you have a private meeting and get to learn a little more about them and their company and what they do. And you tell them about yourself and what you do. And then you stay in touch with this person every 4 to 6 weeks, let's say, and send them an email. Oh, this is what I've been doing in my job search, or this is what I read. I read this article that might be of interest to you. The object is not just to hand out your card or meet someone once. The object is to start building a connection with someone over a period of time. And so that when they hear of a job opening or there's a job opening in their company, they will think of you because you have been in touch with them and you remain in touch with them. All right, how are you going to get these meetings that I'm talking about? I'm not talking even about job interviews, although a meeting can turn into a job interview. How do you get a meeting? So you can get introduced to someone from one of your contacts. You've got your list, your networking list. These are the people you know. You are also connected with people on LinkedIn and on Facebook. These are considered your primary contacts. Primary contact is someone whom you know directly. Then you can ask each of them, could you introduce me to someone? Then you're going to write to that person. All right, second thing is you can write directly. Even if you don't know the person, you can do research online and find out who is the vice president of marketing, who is the chief financial officer. You find out the name and title and email of the person who is in a position to hire someone who does what you do. You send them an email. I'm going to talk to you about what you're going to say in this email. And then you follow up with a phone call to get the meeting. So you've got this list now of 100 to 200 companies. You can't possibly call every single person at these companies after you've sent an email. So you're going to divide your list. You're going to prioritize your list. A companies, B companies, and C companies. Your B and C companies, maybe it's 80 to 120 of those companies. Your A list is only going to be 10 to 20 of the top companies. So for your B and C, you're going to write an email directly to a person. First paragraph, I'm interested in the work of XYZ company. I'd love to learn more about what you're doing. Second paragraph is your pitch. I'm a fill in the blank, marketing specialist with 7 years of experience. I can do SEO marketing and digital marketing. Paragraph 3, here are some of my recent accomplishments. Bullet 1, bullet 2, bullet 3. Paragraph 4, I would welcome the opportunity to discuss more about what your company is doing or how I can contribute to your company and look forward to meeting you. Notice, you're not asking for a meeting, you're asking for a meeting, but you're not going to call them. That's it. This is basically a cold email. You're introducing yourself. You say enough about yourself in the pitch and the accomplishments so they understand what your skills are and how successful you've been. So this is the email you're going to send to your B and C list of companies, the majority of companies on your list. Targeting for your A list of companies. This may be 5, 10, 15, or 20 companies at most, the places you really would love to work. Okay, you start with the same first paragraph. Why are you writing? I'm writing because I'm very interested in using my skills and such to work for your company. Give the name of the company. You write your pitch. I am a marketing specialist with 7 years of experience doing XYZ, digital marketing. Paragraph 3, your 3 accomplishments. Now, Here's the difference. Your last paragraph in the email. I'd love to meet with you for 15 minutes at a mutually agreeable time and shall call you in a day or two to set up a meeting. This is crucial. For your A list, you will say you're going to call and then you have to call. Now, because this is an email, you can call the next day because this person is going to get the email and look at it. Don't wait a week to call. What are you going to say? All right, let's say you call the company. Don't leave a message. As you know, someone who's at a high level is most likely going to have an administrative assistant or someone who's going to block the call or screen the call. So the first time you call, you don't leave a message. You say, oh, when will Mr. Wright or Ms. Wright be back in the office? And then try calling at that time. Again, you want to get to the person, not their administrative assistant. You may have to call before 9 o'clock in the morning or after 5 p.m. at night. Why? Because people in senior level positions often come in early and stay late. Now, you may get the assistant who asks, well, what's this in reference to? And then you say, this is about an email I sent. Mr. So-and-so or Ms. So-and-so is expecting my call. Notice you still haven't left your name and number. Why? Because if it takes 5, 10 calls, you don't want to keep leaving your name and number because then they'll think you're stalking. Okay. What do you say? Let's say you get a meeting. They're willing to talk to you. They're willing to set up a meeting. Now, nowadays, of course, the meeting will be by Zoom as we are on today, or by FaceTime, or by Skype. You still say during the meeting the same things you would say in a live meeting. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You give your pitch again. And you say, I've done some research into the name of their company and the industry, and I'd love to learn more about it. What are the challenges you and your company are facing in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year? And the person will talk to you. And then you also want to learn about that person. Tell me about your career path. How did you start out? How long have you been at this company? And then you can talk about your accomplishments. This is what I've been doing. This is what I've accomplished. Then at the end of the meeting, remember this, you don't know if there's a job opening. They're willing to talk to you, so that's good. You show them your job target list, that Excel spreadsheet of companies. And you can ask this person, do you know anyone who works at any of these companies? Could you introduce me to that person? Can you think of any other companies I should add to my list? Thank you so much for meeting with me today. I really appreciate it. I will stay in touch with you and let you know how things are going. So after this meeting, you are going to write a follow-up email and you're going to stay in touch with this person. You do say, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I really appreciated talking to you about XYZ company. Repeat, as I mentioned, my top skills are in writing, marketing, communicating, SEO, digital. List your accomplishments again, and then thank them again and say, yes, I will stay in touch with you. You put this person on your list of networking contacts. Now you've added one more person to your list. You write the date when you had the meeting, you write the date you sent the email, and you tickle your calendar so that 4 weeks later, you send this person another email. So what are you going to do now? Keep in touch with all these people. Keep them in the loop of your job search. You want to be able to share information you've learned, maybe an article you've read, book you've read, something you've heard about that may be of interest to them. And you want to let them know, how's your job search going? Oh yeah, I had a couple of interviews. Oh, I'm researching this company. Keep relating to them. Keep building your network by going through your primary contacts to meet other people through your friends, your family, former colleagues, through your contacts at LinkedIn. Keep emailing, keep calling, keep meeting. So, bottom line with the hidden job market is, the ball is in your court. You need to keep networking and keep writing directly to companies, to someone at a company who is in a position to hire you if there was an opening. Questions?
Thanks so much, Amy. That was a really great presentation. And it does look like we have had a ton of questions coming in throughout. So I'd encourage everyone, if you have any, please use the Q&A. That's where I'll be looking for all of your questions. Leave them there. Again, you can leave them as yourself or anonymously. But let's dive right in because there's a ton in here.
That's great. Okay.
So first question is from A. Zeller. They asked, and this is in reference to all the accomplishments list that you were talking about towards the beginning of the presentation. They said, when compiling your list of your top 7 accomplishments, is there a time frame we should stick to, such as no more than 8 years old or 10 years old?
Okay, that's a great question.
It's a good one.
And the answer is it depends. If the job you're going for includes things that you've done 20 years ago, I'm saying this because I've been working for so many years. If you've only been working for 10 years, not an issue. But if you have more than 10 years experience, you may have done things 15 or 20 years ago that are relevant. The point about accomplishments is when you write about the accomplishments at the top of your resume and in your cover letters or these introductory letters, you're not putting in the date. You never put in the year of the accomplishment. You just want the person at the company to recognize the fact that, hey, this person has done this. I know they could do it for me. So the year really is irrelevant. Now, when they get to your resume, you haven't sent your resume to any of these people yet. When they get to the resume, they'll see the accomplishment, if it's great, at the top of the first page with no date. Then they'll see the same accomplishment under a previous job, and the job may be older. Thing about the jobs on the resume is you shouldn't go back further than 15 years. So if you've got something from 20 years ago, here's an example. You've got an accomplishment from 20 years ago that's relevant. You put it up at the beginning of your resume, the top part, first page. You can use it in your pitch. You can use it in your cover letters. You can use it during the interview process and these emails. It won't appear then in your resume if it's 20 years old because you're only going to go back, let's say 10 years, tops 15 years. That's okay. Then they'll ask you about it. Then you can tell a story about this whole thing. Okay.
That's great advice. Yeah, I mean, your resume is not going to be your interview. You'll have the chance to expand upon everything. You want to grab their attention with it, though. That's great advice.
Exactly. What is it, 7 to 10 seconds that someone looks at the resume? If they don't see what they're looking for, they're not going to read the rest of it anyway.
Yeah, that's precisely it. We had this same sort of question come in from 3 different people, Nikki, Pat, and Nicole, all asking very similar questions. I'm just going to group them together here. Okay. It's essentially, how do you quantify your accomplishments when it doesn't lend itself easily to statistics, or you might not know the exact numbers because your boss didn't really share like the sales numbers with you? How do you come up with those numbers when they're not clear?
2 things. One is, if you have any contact with a colleague from that company, maybe a colleague can find out what those numbers are. That's a possibility. Second, if you have an idea of a ballpark number or a ballpark percent, so it doesn't have to be exact, but is it 10 grand or is it 100 grand or is it $1 million? I mean, you want to be in a ballpark. You don't want to overblow something if you have no clue what it is. So that's, it's hard to do it. Here's my suggestion going forward. When you're in a job, you started and you're in there for the first 6 months or so, you need to keep a journal of what you've done, and you need to find out information. And if you don't have access to that information, but it's germane to what you've done, you can ask around in the company and get the information. You should be able to get access to an annual report or a financial report or a budget, but that's past history. So now, if you can ask a former colleague, or if not, come up with a number that you think is reasonable.
Yeah. Also, get creative. Not everything has to be tied to sales. It could be tied to attitudes. It could be tied to time. Perhaps you came up with something that just made the process easier. Perhaps you started, I know a lot of people in HR worry about like how they can describe their accomplishments. Maybe you started an annual review cycle or an employee engagement review where employees could just let the company know how it's doing. Maybe it's not quantifiable, but you can clearly prove that it had some effect on the company. So just, you got to get a little creative sometimes. I know it can be tough, but I know you can do it.
I agree. You can say launched if it's the first thing. You're the one who started it. You want
Yes.
something, or you did the first something. That's good
Yes.
too.
Those are such powerful words. Question here from, again, a few people, an anonymous attendee and Pat, about ageism. So do you have any tips for overcoming
I can give you a
ageism
few
with the
tips, but that's
resumes?
another whole webinar. And if you like, you can do that for Fairygodboss. But anyway, ageism. All right, before they even see you, that's why it's so important on your resume to only go back 10 to 15 years. Because anything more than that, they know, okay, this person is old. Secondly, you don't put the date of graduation. If it's within 10 years or less, absolutely you put the date of graduation from high school or college or graduate school. I haven't put the date of my graduation of any of my schools. I've been to undergraduate, graduate, and another graduate school. I haven't done that for years for that simple reason, because it's none of their business really. Now, that's the resume piece. If someone sees you, like, okay, you're looking at me now, you really can't tell how old I am. I happen to look younger than I am anyway, but you really can't tell. Now, I had one client who was, I want to say mid 40s to early 50s, very, very polished, very experienced, a lot of energy. And she let her hair go gray, so it was grayish. And then she asked me, well, should she color it? Because she hadn't colored it. And then she was in a group with a group leader, okay? And the group said, don't color it. And that group leader, who's also a coach, said, don't color it. I mean, so you may get conflicting, information from people. But once you reach a certain age, it will make you look younger. If your hair is gray, by coloring it, not a very dark color, but something that's soft, it will help reduce the age.
Perfect. I see a lot of people asking about webinars on ageism. We actually have done them before. Look through our past events. You'll see a few we have done on ageism, but I hear you loud and clear. We'll do more. Okay, we have two questions here about cover letters. Hold on, there's so many questions. I'm losing them here. Okay, Vincent asked, which do you feel is more important, the cover letter or the resume? And likewise, Kalechi asked, how long does HR typically spend looking at cover letters?
Okay. Some places couldn't care less about cover letters. They don't even ask you for a cover letter. They just say, send the resume, and that's it. Other places will ask for it. So how much time do they look at it? If they're asking for it, they might look at it. The point is, it's another advertisement for you. That's why it should be nice, short and sweet, include 3 skills and include 2 to 3 accomplishments. Because if they see the keywords that are taken directly from the job description, that will say, oh, okay, this person has got what I'm looking for. I'm not an HR person, but I've done lots of hiring and I've read lots of resumes and cover letters. So if you're asking for one, you want to read it. The other reason they may be asking for it is they want to see how you can write in full sentences, in English, okay? Is your grammar correct? Have you chosen the correct words? Resumes, on the other hand, are not full sentences. So there's another reason to ask for a cover letter, just to see how well you can write.
Yeah. And then on top of that, Pat wants to know, kind of like, when it says cover letter optional, is it actually optional or should you always do it?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that. If it's optional, it's optional. If you feel the cover letter will help in their getting interested in you, if you feel the cover letter can tailor your resume more specifically to the job, then I would say, yeah, go ahead and use it. Samantha, what do you think? I mean,
I would kind of agree. I think if your resume is really strong and can stand on its own, it's just kind of adding fluff for no reason. But if you have a really interesting experience that isn't really shown on your resume and you kind of want to hook them through your cover letter, include it then. It's kind of where you think your strongest skills are. If you're a really good writer and you know that that will get them, do the cover letter. Right. It's in your best interest. Great question here from an anonymous attendee. How do you find out who the hiring manager is? And then how do you balance, I love this, acting like a pest versus your genuine interest?
Exactly. Okay, where do you find it? So sometimes it's possible to do a search for the company on LinkedIn, and under the company, it will say people. And the people who work at that company will have their own LinkedIn profiles, and you can go through those people. It could be a few hundred, but you can go through them and see who has the job title that you're looking for. So it's possible to find people there, not always possible. The other way is certain coaches, myself included, we have access to a database of companies with hiring, names of hiring managers, senior VPs, managing directors, with their emails and phone numbers. You can go through your own network and see if they know anybody at a company. Sometimes if it's a higher level person, maybe their name will be on the company website. Maybe their name will be in their annual report. So it takes some time, it takes some research. It's not a fast, it's not a fast answer. Now, the other piece, the second half, how do you make sure you're not a pest? Okay, so with the phone calls, you can't keep calling them every day. You call the first time. If they're not there, you say, what's a good time to call? You try before 9 o'clock, you try after 5, and if you keep getting the administrative assistant, you can hang up. The object is to try to get directly to that person. And then once you've met them, once a month is not terrible to send someone an email. That's okay.
Yeah, and on that note, an anonymous attendee asked something really interesting. How do you keep connecting in such frequency with everyone when you have, this person has over 1,000 connections? So okay. They said, it's a little overwhelming for me. How should I manage that?
I don't mean for you to connect with everybody on your list of 1,000 connections.
Yes.
I mean for you to connect with the people who are the hiring managers at companies. Once you've had a conversation with that new person, that secondary contact or that tertiary contact, and you've had an actual conversation, whether it's a Zoom meeting or a phone call, then you stay in touch every month. You're not staying in touch every month individually with 1,000 people. That's not happening. It's only the people who are on this list of companies with the hiring managers that you're staying in touch with those you have met with. So the list gets smaller and smaller. You can start with your 1,000 contacts, but then you've got to ask them who can they introduce you to, the secondary contacts, and of those, who do you get a meeting with? And of those, who do you stay in touch with?
Yeah, it's really narrowing down kind of who's going to be your most valuable contacts, because right. Again, messaging 1,000 people every right. few weeks, I don't think anybody can do that.
Nobody. The only way you stay in touch with them is you post something on your LinkedIn page and they're yes. connected with you. That's it. That's fine. Yeah. You can post something every day. But I'm talking about an individual email to an individual person that's personalized to them. It's a very narrow list. You think of your sales funnel. You've got 1,000 people, then you've got a couple hundred people, then you've got maybe 10 or 20 people. And that's it.
Cool question here from an anonymous attendee again. And I think this relates to a few people asking the same thing. They said, I've worked at my most recent company for almost 20 years now. Are there any tips for leveraging this as an advantage on my resume? I like that.
Well, first of all, have you had the same job title or have you been promoted during those 20 years? That's important. It's important to show each of the different jobs you've had and the years you held those positions. And you can say in one of the bullets that promoted to this position from such and such, or promoted to this position, okay? If you have had different jobs that are pretty much on the same level, that was my case when I worked with the Engineering Society. I had 3 jobs in 10 years, and they were lateral moves. They were not promotions. I leveraged it by saying I did totally different things and gained different skills in each of those jobs. And that's what propelled me then to the next level, which was a CEO of a small association. So again, depending on what you've done at the jobs, the circumstances, and that's it. I mean, you've been there 20 years, there's a reason. I mean, you've got longevity, you're responsible, you're mature. It shows a lot of other things.
Yeah, it's a lot of pros, I would say, as to, I mean, not that moving from job to job is a bad thing. It's not at all, but there are a lot of pros that come with staying at a company for 20 years. I don't think that would raise any red flags. I think it would only be a good thing for you. Yeah. And then we only have a few more minutes left, but there's so many questions on networking. So I think that's what the topic I want to close out on here. Okay. Amy asked, how do I reach out to people and kind of restart conversations with people who I have not spoken to a very long time? She said it's very awkward.
Good question. One of the positive things about this whole COVID-19 crisis is people are hungry to connect. I heard from someone I worked with 20 years ago who connected with me. I haven't spoken to him in years, wrote to me like nothing happened. Started writing to me, I wrote back, we've been in touch. Connected with someone else who I graduated college with, I was friends with for a number of years, but then we lost contact. I contacted her, happy to connect. So during this time, people are thrilled, literally, they are thrilled to hear from you. They don't care if they know you from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. They're really very happy to hear from you. So don't be afraid to reach out, connect with them on LinkedIn or through Facebook, and then ask for a phone call or a Zoom meeting.
Yeah. Really interesting question as well from another anonymous attendee. If you request to meet for 15 minutes and you get those 15 minutes, how do you make a really good first impression in that very short time span, but also get the information you're looking for?
Well, it's like preparing for a real interview for a real job, right? That means you come dressed appropriately, or if it's online, you're still dressed appropriately, your hair, your makeup, etc. You're prepared with your pitch, a 2-minute pitch of who you are. You're prepared with a little index card with 3 things that you know you want to say about yourself and your accomplishments so you don't forget. On the back of the index card, you come prepared with several questions that you want to ask them so you don't forget. You look them in the eye. Now, you can't shake hands, but you still want to look them in the eye. So that's very important. You don't want to be looking up here or down here or over here or over here. When you're on a video or Zoom, every gesture is magnified. So really keep your hands in your lap. Don't touch your face. Don't play with your hair. Watch what you say. Try not to say, I listened to a presentation this morning from a business group I belong to, and we're all members and we all know each other. And the guy giving the presentation, who I adore, and he's terrific at what he does, literally every other word was no. Know what you're going to say. Pause if you can't think of the next word. Then continue with what you were going to say. So it's all about you, how you look, how you speak, be positive, smile, show energy.
Yeah, that's perfect. I think that's a great note to end on. Apologies to anybody whose question we did not answer, but I was reading through a lot of them, and I know you can find some answers on the Fairygodboss website, so feel free to search there. Also, post your questions on the feed. You can post as yourself or anonymously. We have an amazing group of women on the platform, and they will definitely be there to help you out with whatever you're going through. Thanks so much again, Amy.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure to do these presentations for Fairygodboss. See you next time, folks. Take care.
Good luck in your job searches. Have a great week. Bye.
Bye.